forms on the computer? Usually when people get an infection.
Diagnostic tools?
Yeah, what's that one diagnostic tool where, like, all the forms they say, run this particular piece of software, and then they go through that list? What?
Hijack this.
Yeah, hijack this. Okay, now.
Trend Micro, they bought it from Mergen, I can't pronounce his name, but he invented it. And it's an advanced tool for advanced users who can understand how to interpret, because Hijack this scans and it lists everything, good or bad, that are in the usual areas where we're looking for spyware. So you have to know, you can't just go in and check everything like a scanner would. It takes some expertise to interpret those, and also to interpret the Hijack this tool itself.
So part of my question had to do with, because I've seen a lot of printouts that Hijack
it's a good starting point.
Informs, but obviously someone has to learn something about, the ins and outs of what they're looking at. And that's why we
have all these help forums out there. You can see all these security forums, Geeks to Go, Bleeping Computer. One of my favorites is DSL reports.
But other than just forums, because I find sometimes forums aren't always that great because there's always different levels of knowledge within the forums.
If you go to the ones I've listed, they restrict who can handle those logs, and they have to be specifically trained.
Okay, so that specific training they're getting, so there's no particular books or somewhere that they really publish the information that lets people know?
I'm part of that underground movement, and we have training camps for people who want to learn.
So is it more by word of mouth? There's no printed documentation on?
It's all behind the scenes.
Well, when you say behind the scenes, that means everything's by word of mouth, or there's no documentation?
It's an entire sub-forum that is non-public, with all the information you need to learn how to use that tool. And that tool really doesn't fix everything,
No, I understand that, but see, I kind of look at that tool as being a lot like Process Explorer. Because Process Explorer, there's tons and tons of information about what's running on the system, and you can identify things with it, but...
On the Microsoft site?
The what? Yeah, sysinternals.
Yeah. Has some excellent diagnostic tools if you're geeky enough to interpret them, or you have a friend who can interpret them, or you can go to a forum and they'll interpret them. Those are some of the tools.
Right, but I would think that this particularly someone's not just waving a magic wand or saying, "Oh, I bestow upon you the ability to do this."
And that's why I didn't list Hijack this, because it takes special knowledge, and it isn't. People misinterpret those logs all the time. They don't realize that the good entries are mixed in with bad entries, and it takes a trained eye to know not only what you're seeing, but how to deal with it.
It's like reading a core dump.
Yes.
Gotta know
and
what
some
they're
of us
looking
just love those logs because.
So they don't make. So no one's made any kind of software that can do an interpretation of the hijack log.
Well, every system is different, though.
Don't be sorry. At least you got to ask.
They do have some analyzers online, but the problem is Hijack This was built around the spyware fighters, underground community, who are helping people remove this malware. And it's you see a bad entry, and we know it's bad. But this particular bad entry means I have to go do X, Y, Z, because I have to know there's all this stuff behind that entry. So the problem is in the wrong hands. Somebody runs Hijack This, they run it on the online analyzer that says, oh, that's bad. So they check them off the box, and they put fix. Well, they don't realize all you did was fix one startup key, and there's a whole boatload of stuff behind it.
But I would think the person that wrote this software, I would think any application should be written taking into mind, okay, this is what a person is going to do, and obviously the software is more efficient than a human being trying to go through, tons and tons of material. The software is going to do it more quickly, and it can actually, I would think, start to point out or mark off different areas that look suspicious or give different levels of suspicion that would actually make it better than.
But it's really less than perfect because Hijack This is less than perfect.
Well, even like a human. I mean, even a human is less than perfect.
Sure. Well,
so,
I frequently.
Not me.
I can start with a Hijack This log to go. An idea of his operating system.
Right.
What service pack? What browser is he running? What kind of security software has it got on there? I get a general idea of the system and maybe what it might be infected with. So that leads me to other tools, and those change over time.
Do people start off by like running hijack this on a clean system, and are they comparing that type of log to one that's infected? Is that more of the procedure that's being used to start to understand what is going on, or?
No, because then you'd have to have two systems set up exactly the same. One both configured the same, and then one infected and one not. You're just never going to get that.
But see, even knowing that someone's interpreting this hijack log that's coming from a whole lot of different systems, there has to be some kind of starting point that someone's going to, be able to make some kind of judgment as to what is going on.
But
so
again, it's more an art than a science. So.
Yeah, but that's not. See, with computers, that's not really art. See, I always hate to hear this term of art being used because
I'm talking about solving the problem.
It boils down to a science because the way the software runs, it's all zeros and ones, and even if you take it down to the and/or gates, on the hardware, that's all science. So, I mean, it's very, very complex that it's not, I only think that people call it an art because people don't really truly understand it completely, and no human can understand it 100%, so they call it art. But I would say it's really more of a science because the operating system that was coded by individuals, and it runs exactly the same every single time. The hardware, it's not going to, the computer's not just going to stand up and walk out of the room. It can't, because it's only built to do one thing every single time, every time this gate is in one position or another.
But I mean, even the way software is installed, if it's installed in a different order, you're going to get different results.
Which is a science, because
but still, I mean, I've debugged things that I just basically pulled something out of my what, and that's what it was. It didn't make any sense. It would never make any sense, but that was the way I solved it. Just by trying my gut feeling, my gut instinct.
Right.
Just from knowing what I was working on.
That's a tool you'll see them start with, and if you ever monitor any of those threads or look at them beyond the first, you'll see usually, especially if it's complicated, that helper is going to run some more diagnostic tools. He's got to find out, okay, I see something suspicious, let's do this, and this.
Peel the onion.
It's very specialized, and I don't like to mention that for people unless they really truly understand not only the log it presents and the information it gives you, but how that tool works.
See, I always get the idea that there's always this stuff that happens on the surface, and no one ever seems to look below as to what is actually going on behind the scenes. Because I think that's where a lot of the problems get solved, is on that lower level as opposed to that higher level.
And that's why they have, for Hijack This, they have whole training, hundreds of individuals across the globe that are the helpers, and then we have the trainers.
So is their training originated, like, are these people taking, like, security-related classes at universities, or what?
Some of them, but not many, really. There are a lot of volunteers or people that are fairly knowledgeable about Windows systems who want to help, and they want to know more about malware removal because it's not always safe. You have to know your malware in addition to your operating system.
So maybe some of them could even be people that have written code, and maybe that's where a lot of the knowledge is coming from.
It's very low.
Because I used to work with someone that used to collect different viruses. I mean, he had a huge collection of it. I mean, that's just something he collected. I mean, nothing bad. I mean, he just liked to collect it.
That's really too bad because you can't put it in a jar and show your friends.
Yeah, I know.
and if you tick them off, he's going to send you an email.
Show you what it's going to do to a system. It's like people. It's like the Center for Disease Control. They have to have their collection of diseases. That doesn't mean that they're going to bring them out and have to.